And welcome back to People Purpose Place for our Monday evening regular catch up. And it's fantastic to see that we've got our third amigo back with us this week, Christine, who has now just clicked a button and dropped off. That's not even
done?
funny.
Like you started talking and then boom, you just killed the internet all
The
by yourself.
Monday-itis internet glitches. So
Yeah.
in the 6 months we've been doing this, we still haven't.
This has never happened more than
That's
twice
right.
an episode.
That's right.
So
Welcome back, Darren. Good to see that you've endured the technology snafus. And I have no doubt.
actually, big storms in Townsville overnight, and it actually did knock out the Starlink. There must be a certain amount of time where it can't pick up what it needs to pick up, and then it eventually just says, "Nah, good night." So we got some notifications from some children who couldn't get access to the internet. The world's coming to the end.
Dear me, that would have been catastrophic for them.
Get out the plastic knives, hide all the sharp things. Stuff's going to get serious. But in the morning, the sun come up and the sky went away, and then we're able to get some access, which is cool. So
yeah, right.
The world could survive. And I'm pretty sure that you're right.
It is interesting that with each leap in technology, we're still beholden to nature.
Yes. Oh, 100%. And even I was speaking to, and this might even be a discussion at some point in time, to our good friend, the tech chef, and he was talking about how far that the AI bot has advanced in the last 3 months.
Yes.
To the point where the education department has now realized that you may never have to sit an exam to get produce a report, which gives you a distinction. And you can even write it. You can even ask the AI bot now to write it as a 15-year-old or as a 12-year-old or as a whatever. So there's now a massive panic in all of those situations. And he's actually been trialing it and said the stuff that it's been producing is just staggering. So what we thought was a brave new world.
Yeah, I guess if you think that it's now got access to decades of data, digital files have been tucked away somewhere on the interwebs, and if you wanted to find Year 12 English essays, how many do you think it can currently look up to spit out the English book report on The Great Gatsby?
Yeah,
just a million of them sitting there. So I'll just filter through that to find the most, the highest ranked from your demographic.
Yes.
Australian environment, male, female demographic, year 12, year 10, and look, here's your response.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just waiting to see whether how easy it is for Christine to log back in. She may have to find that link that we start with.
Yep.
And then we can sort of get cracking.
Get cracking on the topic for today. Put away the distractions of the internet. And this sort of all leads actually really well into our topic for this evening. It's been a couple of weeks arising. We've been talking about setting safe spaces to have conversations and to allow people to be safe, which is no simple thing.
Yep.
And Christine, thankfully, is well enough that she's able to join us this evening with the internet gods permitting.
Absolutely. And I think you're right in saying that all of these devices and distractions we have all form part of those things of making people feel less safe in environments because actually, here we go.
There we go.
You thought it was unsafe to add me.
Fair enough too.
There's some gremlin in there that's thinking she doesn't belong here. She won't feel safe. Saving me. Thank you, gremlin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go on, Darren. Sorry.
Just our Monday evening check-in with technology.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's all good. So I was just recounting to Darren, Christine, that I'm encouraged that you're feeling well enough to be able to participate this evening. your health has been really a bit subpar.
More than a bit subpar.
Well, I'd talk it up, but it is great to see that you're back with us. And as
thanks
part
to
of
you two and all my wonderful doctors.
Yeah, well,
it took that new building with no mold in it, and you've done that. Thank you.
Well,
it's only 2 weeks, and I'm better. I'm so much. Everybody notices.
Yeah.
Everybody. Yeah. I feel so much better. Anyway, keep going. Otherwise, I'll just talk about how good I feel.
That's a great thing. That's a great thing to feel.
It's better than whinging about how bad I feel.
Yeah. So we appreciate our Monday evening get-togethers. Darren and I have flown as the dynamic duo for the last couple of weeks, so it's great to have the three amigos back on the routine.
Mm-hmm.
For those who don't know, the People Purpose Place conversation is about long-form conversation around big ideas. And a few weeks ago, we stumbled across this concept of making and holding a safe space for people to be able to participate. And that is hopefully a challenging and an exciting conversation to jump into. We don't profess to have all the answers, and we'd love certainly input. So if you want to jump onto the conversation, there's the ability to drop a line in the chat there, and we'll offer an opinion, expert or otherwise, and obviously take on your input. Our audience seems to be growing on a week-by-week basis, and we do get follow-up questions. So in the future, if we are corrected, we will absolutely come forward and say, here's better information or more information or further information to our topic. So we don't pretend that we know all the answers, far from it. To start, though, we do always have our internet and technology glitches, and then we ask a check-in question to get us into set the scene for this evening's conversation. And Darren's written a doozy. He assures us he can answer it for himself. However, so I'll run the...
Whoops, looks like we've lost Rowan to the freeze. Go for it, Darren. Answer the question.
Yeah, well, I'll ask the check-in question. So
yeah, please.
The check-in question is...
Do you think we're safer in a modern world or when we were in prehistory?
Yes, that's right.
It's a great check-in question.
Yeah, and I actually got this on the walk while I was walking around before, and it occurred to me that there's lots of different types of safety, isn't there? And I wondered whether my initial pondering was that I think we might have been more emotionally safe in prehistory with a tighter tribal unit that was probably, we knew where we were in the tribal thing, and we could feel really safe about that. But we were probably physically not safe. So there's a fairly big chance, hey, something, saber-tooth tiger could come and eat us. And now that I've learned, and you've, pushed me down a few of those paths as well about things like polyvagal theory and all of those things in our physiology, it makes me feel that our modern life is probably comfortable, which is a certain level of probably over safety in the physical world. Safety.
Yeah.
But emotionally, I think we are enormously less safe. Like, I think all of us are sitting in this hypertension of speed and tension around everything going on around us. And I think, the polyvagal theory fits into that, with all of us feeling like we're in a survival mode quite a lot because of, everything that goes with modern life. More people together, closer, more potential challenges, more conflict, more interpersonal breakdown, all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, my initial thought was, hey, we got to be more safe today than we were in prehistory. But I came to the point where I don't think that's the case. What do you think, Christine?
I think that we don't feel safe
Yep.
today in spite of the fact that this is the safest, living in a first world country today, let's leave America out for a minute. They got too many guns. But
Yes.
even there, guns aren't a problem in most suburbs. Guns aren't a problem in most places. I mean, you got to worry about having mass shootings, but we're physically so safe. We're so cosseted. You know, you have to wear a seatbelt. Well, you have to do this and you have to do that. You have to do everything else to keep your physical body safe. I get it, because we have a health system and it has to pay for all those broken bones and broken heads that result from physical unsafety.
Yes.
But I just have very much the feeling, and I really basically since I was quite young, more than 50 years ago, first started to get it, that I never felt safe. I didn't use those words. My parents were typically for those people from the greater generation who all went to, you know, the men went to the war and women worked hard and everybody got together and got through the war, and they'd all experienced the Depression, the Great Depression, the real Depression. And but the problem was that they were all basically Victorians, and they were emotionally cut off here. So children were basic. Nobody said that in America in the 50s. Children are to be seen, not heard.
Yes.
In fact, in our family, it was not prized to be a child. It was prized to be a capable intellectual adult. So from the age of 8, I could do geopolitics and discuss history and go and rush off and get the Britannica or get the encyclopedia and say, look at this, and discuss it with the family. But that's all up here. And there wasn't any of that. So I think, and it's even clearer to me as I've become quite ill in the last few years, that I've never, ever, ever felt safe. And I would think that that's probably one of the underpinnings of falling ill at an older age. I mean, of course, I had a bad traumatic brain injury. I had this, that, and the other thing happen. But when you think about it, I think that lack of safety has probably eaten away at my ability to stay healthy and feel good about myself.
That's awesome.
I've done that for 73 years. And I've worked on it for more than 50 years, 60 years, actually.
That's a really powerful insight.
Yeah.
And it's a powerful insight, because I've wondered that myself, in that as you do a little bit of work on yourself, you sometimes go, oh, look, my personal trauma really is not that bad, bloke. Like, give yourself a slapping, like, move on. There's people who are going through proper stuff. But I don't think we should discount anyone's trauma, because I honestly believe in a modern world that how we're growing up as children is leaving a residual impact on our safety, on our sense of safety, and our sense of well-being, which is absolutely impacting on our health, both our physical health and our mental health. So yeah, I mean, that's a great explanation of something that I've sort of haven't been able to articulate that well. But the idea that everyone's trauma is important is certainly we see every day, and we just don't acknowledge it.
No question. And I think that to be able to make a group feel safe, everybody has to be able to express to some point how they feel unsafe and where the feeling of unsafety comes from. I mean, I can quite reasonably articulate all that, and it all makes sense, but it often sits up here, and I can't really translate it. So I'm still cut off like my parents were at the neck, less than they. But how do I let that trickle down into my physiology? Because there's no such thing as physically safe or psychologically safe. It's all the same thing, isn't it? In a sense. I mean, at the extreme ends, maybe not. But for us, it's mostly a combination of both.
I think you've modeled that beautifully. Yeah, absolutely.
Rowan, how about you?
So I've had a glitch, which I apologise horribly for, because I appreciate that it's been an amazing journey, and you have, for me, it's been, you're a mentor to watch someone doing this work over such a period of time, to still struggle with imperfection, and it's not resolved and it's not correct, right? So the journey of trying is worth doing.
Yeah.
And that's the example I've found, watching my folks and people who I get inspired by. I go, they don't hold themselves out, and you don't hold yourself out, Christine, to say, I've achieved perfection, I've got nirvana, I've done it right, perfect, or even, some days maybe not even adequately, but I'm still trying on a daily basis to improve myself. And I've had a perhaps late to the party. I was very typical, ignore all of that stuff, and soldier on being the atypical motorbike riding, beer drinking, Yahoo young man, with all the associated repression of inner self and feelings, and acknowledgement of dissatisfaction with stuff. And I've had a midlife crisis change of circumstance, which has been actually awesome. It has shed some light on things that I was holding on to that were completely unnecessary. How I now hold on to much less. And as a consequence, I perhaps find a comfort or an ease or a safety that other people might not necessarily associate with. So a roof over my head is not such a big deal, but that's after a few years of being very fluid state with that. So, and it's a constant evolving journey.
If I could just cast my mind back to when we first met, which I think was probably at one of those environmental things 100 years ago in Cairns, when you were still, when you were doing building products and all that stuff, and I was being the environmental advocate for the universe,
Yeah.
Sometimes successfully and sometimes with no effect whatsoever.
Still doing it. Yeah.
Still doing it, sometimes with no effect whatsoever. But there was something in you that was already there. That you responded to me, I responded to you, and it developed from there. So it developed into a very beautiful friendship. But why? Because you already had the internal capacity to open up to that. So I don't know where that came from. Your mother, your father, yourself, your godfather. I don't know where it came from. Do you know where it came from? Probably not. But you had that capacity, and you responded to the stimulus of that capacity. And really, we all should have that capacity. Do we? I don't know.
I think I see examples in others where they shy away from that capacity.
Yeah.
So they stumble on it, or raise it in themselves and see it in themselves, and it's profoundly uncomfortable. And we run away.
But don't you feel that you do that also? Don't you catch yourself every single day ignoring something, or pretending it's not so, or sort of Xing out your deeper self just to keep yourself safe up here? Don't you find that at least once a day, 30 seconds here, 3 minutes there, weeks and weeks and weeks somewhere else? But I think it's still with us all.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
100%. I think The interesting thing is, when we originally started talking about this safety conversation, I know that Christine, you had some reservations about, hey, we're going to dive in here deep, and that can cause, that can uncover some stuff. But I think you both beautifully just modeled what we're trying to talk about, which is if the whole people focus place thing is about how do groups work through their own issues, through their own imperfections, through their own traumas, to create an environment where we can come full circle and say those things all still exist, but how can we find a way that we can create an environment safe enough that we can explore those spaces, and hopefully that enriches our life, which I think maybe fits back into that whole, prehistory safety versus modern safety. I think if we could combine the two, where we could have, I would imagine back then the care for children was probably preeminent, not the care for them as adults, but the care for them as children, right? Because that's the most important thing. I've got to get them from here to there, so I need to care for them right now.
Well, and lots of them died. Correct. I mean, there were no antibiotics, there were no hospitals, there were saber-toothed tigers. Hello, lots of them. Most children died until the 1950s in modern societies.
Yep. So I think
they had a good reason not to feel safe and to look after their kids. They were going to just fall off the perch, weren't they?
Which probably is the reason why, at a deeper level, we're all seeking that all the time. We're all, because we've had, hundreds of thousands of years of going, how good was it to feel nurtured? How good was it to feel in that environment? And then we come into this modern thing where you guys all got to grown up, children should be seen, not heard. I remember hearing that as a child, that statement. And I do. And I don't remember, I didn't apply a value to it, right, at that age. But as you get older, you go, hang on, what does that actually mean?
WTF.
Yeah, exactly right. And what are the repercussions that are left behind that? And do we pass that on to the next generation by accident?
I don't believe you did. Certainly not in the shape in which it was received by you. You and Jane have done a wonderful job bringing those, what I've seen, bringing those boys up. But I never had a child. Why? Because I never could have produced a Colby and a Hunter.
I will say unequivocally, if you didn't say "and Jane," I wouldn't have believed you, because
but it's always a group effort.
It is, but you need to have a balancing, the yin and the yang thing to get around that. And I think subconsciously, and I go back over this and go, how did how you're attracted to different people and all the rest of it?
Yeah.
I do know at some level, I knew that that deep nurturing thing, which is different to love.
Yeah.
I knew that Jane had that. And on some, you look back now and go, I think that was actually a trait that I was going, hang on, I would really like my children to be exposed to that. And I know my mother loves me, and I had a fantastic, but I knew that nurturing thing was different. I knew that, and so I think I sought that out, and that's how the things roll out. So we said we were going to go in not so deep too early, but I think we just jumped right in the deep end.
I think so, but I think that that's I love that story. And of course I love meeting Jane, and I feel the warmth and the nurture that she radiates in an email, in a one-line email. She radiates warmth and nurturing. Well, I don't know how to do that. And I must say that for all that I've got more confidence to talk about my feelings of unsafety, I am scared shitless of trying to put a group together and actually walking my talk.
Yeah.
How about you two?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and I've recent doing those Sam Harris. You look at things you do and you say cause and effect. I will say Sam Harris's meditations on his app, Waking Up, have really helped me to try and acclimatize that, because you actually helped me express initially what my own internal mechanisms were struggling with. So I knew it needed to happen, but it wasn't until you said, this sounds really good, but I don't know why I'm doing it. And then later on, this is annoying because I know I really do need to do this, and I need to I need to fight myself to get there. So that has been my journey to the point where now I have given to it. I just don't know how to do it, which is a little bit like what this whole thing is about, right? We don't have all the answers. We just have part of the path. So I have got to that point where I go, yes, I think I can do it. But that didn't happen in a day. It didn't happen in a week. It didn't happen in 12 months. How do you feel, Rowan?
Absolutely. Christine, casting our mind back to when we first met is a decade ago, or
more,
even more.
Well over, Rowan. Well over.
So, well, actually, that does make sense. But
it
has been a journey, and thankfully complimentary, and thankfully we now can get to this level of conversation. Where we can be completely open.
Or as open as we can be.
Yes.
Completely, I'm not there yet. But
no,
I'm a lot better than I was.
And I have reflect on times where I've found a group of people, and that bloody dog is just coming.
He wants to feel like he belongs too.
He does belong.
He wants to feel safe, so he's telling others to go away. He's just protecting all his dear ones.
Exactly right. He goes, "What are you doing over there? You shouldn't be doing that. You're patting me."
Yeah, besides, there might be a burglar out here.
Sorry, Murphy wants to be included.
And everybody wants to be included.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, who doesn't?
And I've seen some really odd examples where groups have formed together and achieved far beyond the sum of their parts. And there's such brief, fleeting moments, because they're all these dysfunctional humans that have turned up at this particular place and time. And Cyclone Larry was a really good example that we threw a group of people together in Innisfail. Torrential rain for 6 weeks, no power, no air conditioning. Go on, help fix Innisfail, and these people who other.
Whoops, we've lost Rowan again.
Oh boy, he's gonna drop out again.
We'll have to get Murphy back, the dog.
Yeah.
Like absolute steam trains for a really constrained, defined, specific task. We need to go do this. There is nobody else who is going to turn up to do it.
No.
And with that, they did this stuff, which was cool. And then they returned to being dysfunctional humans.
Aren't we amazing?
You idiot.
We find heaven and recreate hell. How do we do that?
Throw all that malarkey out. I'll get some beers and punch on again. Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. And start insulting each other and poking each other and taking out our shit on each other. It's just crazy, isn't it?
But the joy in those moments where you see that recognition, and they've come home and they're dog-tired and exhausted and they've done this thing, and you go, you realise there was no one else that could do that.
No.
And you go, a little feeling of achievement. It lasts a moment, and then we revert back to ourselves.
Yeah.
So that having those experiences is some taste of group success.
Group success, but how hard it is to maintain.
That's right. In a 35-year working career, there's been 3.5 weeks of it.
That's it. And yet, somehow you have to find a way to praise yourself for the 3.5 weeks and 35 years that actually were less dysfunctional.
I liken it a bit to my golf experience, and I'm the world's most shit golf player.
No, I am.
But I have one time struck the ball and it went straight and sort of in the general direction I intended it to go. And for that one shot, I would go back and do it again. And you go, oh, that one time.
How's that possible?
4,000 other strokes that have been utter misery and pain, and you go, why does anyone do this?
And sand traps and water traps and missing.
And each of those are just a single layer of our human experience, right? Mm. So this group of individuals who come together in the Larry experience had no family or love or anything else. They just had a common purpose and pulled together for this because they could see the community desperately needed this this work.
Well, and, physical repair after a cyclone.
And they got beyond themselves and they figured, okay, there's a community need for this, and we can do that. But there was no enlightenment. There was no greater love for fellow man or any of that.
That was ongoing. Yeah.
Mm. I would like to hope that perhaps as individuals, they would recount that favourably at a future point in time and aspire to reach that altruistic version of themselves again.
Mm-hmm.
But I've no way of knowing.
No.
A
bit like that one golf shot, recounting the days when it went straight.
The one.
I do wonder. I have wondered, and it is a common theme, and it's a little bit of something we've been thinking about modelling as a part of our group dynamics. Is you do find diversity and challenge is something that does help groups galvanise. Yep. So if you have something bigger than yourself to be working for, and there's some of the stuff tied up in, religion tries to emulate some of these functionalities and that sort of stuff. And that sense of communitas, the community. Mm-hmm. So all of those are elements within something else. So then becomes, how do you perpetuate and make that more than 3 weeks and 35 years? And how do we help groups get to that position where they can advance that? And I think, coming back to tonight's discussion, I think some of that is about an environment safe enough for each of those individuals who have their own trauma, right? If they had been able to sit down and go, oh, now we're arguing about this, or who's paying dinner, or I've had too many beers and I'm going to punch in the face. If they had been able to get to a safe enough place where they go, look, the real reason why I'm doing this is because, I'm angry about this and I need to express it. But particularly with blokes, it's very difficult to get to that safe space where everyone can then equalize and be honest about stuff to get to a point where you can move into a deeper level of trust. And then, what does that look like when you take that next step? So I think that's a good segue into, how do we use those experiences in one single event to be able to apply them for everyone in a toolbox that can hopefully get them to a point where we can all be having, better group experiences.
Tell us how.
I'm absolutely confident that simple elements such as the floor plan layout can facilitate better home environments. And an example of that might be if we have 5 residents in a house and one person has the master bedroom and everyone has a subservient bedroom, there's a very different dynamic, irrespective of singing Kumbaya, holding hands, any other, any of the soft skills to counter this fundamental, no, you've got 10 square metres more space and your own private bathroom, we've got to put up with everyone else's activities in the bathroom. So that's not the focus. That's just a very short, simple example, because I think the intention of working on forming groups and working on our best self is an ongoing journey. So it's not we've walked into the floor plan and got the floor plan that facilitates an equal outcome for everybody. It's we have an intention to have an equal outcome for everybody and allow everyone to have a space and a voice and a seat at the table today, tomorrow, and every time into the future, with the expectation that in the future, we might get to this level of conversation in our group, but we have to start with safe enough for now.
Yeah, and I think that intention, the floor plan already holds the intention. Because the old floor plan with the master bedroom and everything else subsidiary, it doesn't hold that intention. It holds the intention of this is a hierarchical household.
Yes.
The head of the hierarchy has the master bedroom and the ensuite, and everybody else is somehow lower down in the ranks of hierarchy. And yet, what do we do over and over again? Just look for some way to figure out who's got a little bit up on me, who's a little bit down on me. And aren't we sensitive to that shit?
Yeah. Actually,
and,
one of the
go on.
One of the questions which actually fits into that we had for tonight is, and I when we've written it down, it probably has two meanings now that you said it that way. But what do we need to do to build an environment that facilitates increased safety? So it's interesting. We've talked about stuff there, but what were the elements? So you talked about what broke down safety. What do you think were the elements in a good design which would facilitate increased levels of safety or inclusiveness?
My experience has been that common binding event. So the Cyclone Larry response is a very, very stark example that we're not here for, it's not a holiday, it's not a fun adventure. This is a time of duress that we're going to. So we are going out of our comfort zone to this place with a purpose. And that purpose should, well, I'd like to think that you can design a purpose into your life and that it should endure today and it should endure this chapter and maybe be an enduring thread for the whole of your existence. It would be fair to say that Mother Teresa and Gandhi had a pretty clear purpose that they clear and endured for decades, including, tens of thousands of followers. To this day, people like that set a enduring purpose. Now, that's
intent and purpose is certainly one of those important galvanizing things. And I think also something you touched on there, which is very true too, is obviously the person who has the had a house that was designed generically, and then someone took the number one spot. Obviously, understanding power in groups and understanding the dynamics of power in groups is something that's very important as well. And I think even modeling this over the years, I've actually seen Christine do a very good job at leveling out that. And I think you mentioned also that Diane Hamilton, Musso Hamilton, is very good at finding a way to navigate everyone in a group conversation to bring the power differentials back down to so that everyone is somewhat on a playing field that enables you to really move into that level of safety. So I definitely think a transparent understanding of where we are and trying to find a way to let power not be controlled by a person is a very important part of developing safety as well, I would suggest.
I think that's absolutely key, Darren, that you can coach for this. So we can absolutely buy in a skill set I think there needs to be the intention to do the work.
Yeah.
So the intention to attend and be consistent in our practice of developing a better group. But if you need that human skill coach assistance, that's absolutely able to be brought in. Now, that's part of developing this toolbox. We've sat down with people who've done a doctorate in intentional communities, finding that 95% of them across the planet end in failure. So what are the lessons we can take out of that? And you don't have to do the whole doctorate, and you don't have to go and live in Findhorn in Scotland.
Yes, Scotland.
To have that experience, you can be coached. You can read the text. You can, follow on the shoulders of giants who've gone before us. We don't have to reinvent. Thankfully,
yeah,
we don't have to reinvent the wheel in every facet of our lives. Choose the facets that work for you. Go and polish that to a fine craft. But for Darren talked about Jane's complementary skill set. That's a great marriage relationship. Forming a full circle with two halves that are quite different in personality.
That blend, yeah.
I think another part you pulled out there, which is very important, which I think comes back to how successful groups will be, is that awareness piece. So if you're aware of power differentials in conversations, and you're aware that a person might be one-upping themselves, and you can see people who are one-downing themselves, or there's not a lot of freedom in the conversation. And I see something you maybe intuitively do this, Christine, but I've seen you do this quite well with strong use of praise with people who need to step up into themselves a little bit. So I think that that understanding of, or that awareness of all of these things is one of the first steps. And that means self-awareness as well as other people's awareness. And I think that is something that is really important to say, hey, where is this thing falling apart? And I think that's why, a little bit like we did at the start, with that a little bit everyone expressing themselves, to start that journey as a group, it's got to start with yourself, hasn't it? Like, you've got to be aware of when you're tripping over yourself, as well as when others are going, oh my goodness, I can tell they're down, or they're not having enough confidence in themselves to stand up in that spot. And we even discussed, with power, maybe that even comes to just, disclosing our privilege as an individual, so that other people don't just think, oh, look, like people could if they logged in now, like, here's these three white people talking about whatever.
Older white people, some of them quite old.
So who are sometimes going on intellectual wanks, which must be a disclosure of, yes, we've been able to be purely in the right place at the right time by absolute accident to end up with this collection of cards, which says, yes, we've got to a reasonable age. So that means we've been able to navigate not dying young. We're white. We have some level of education, and that needs to be disclosed as a card to say, if we don't want to be seen to be using that incorrectly, we just need to hold the card up and say, look, I get we've had these advantages. What does that mean for you, and how does that impact on you? And look, be open and honest with me if there is ever a time you start. And we've had this with the housing older women's group that we movement that we work with. I really love working with mature women, because they'll say, look, you're starting to mansplain.
No mistaking what they think.
And there's no confusion about that. And as long as we can approach it with the idea of not pushing anyone up or anyone down, that I think that aids an environment where we can then feel more safe, and we can sink into that experience.
Beautifully put.
And I think we had another question here. Do you think, and this will be interesting to do with that exact situation, do you think there are levels of safety?
Oh, absolutely. Rowan, what do you have to say?
Oh, absolutely, for sure, because we start a relationship, we first meet someone, we're on our best behaviour, and we are considering how we want to interact, and we want to make a favourable impression. So we're putting our best foot forward, and we're starting off. Now, over time, that relationship is naturally going to evolve to, well, actually, this person might be a professional mentor. They might be a kindred spirit. They might be, future business partner. They might be nothing I want to do with ever again. And our response and behaviour, of course, will be different. If that's someone that you eventually want to be an intimate marriage partner with, your safety is going to be gradually increase till you're hopefully able to be a fully open person in the company of that future life partner. But that's, hopefully that's one person in our life. It's not lots, right? It's not lots and lots of people that we go to that level. Some people, Darren and I have a relationship that is probably more like a brother relationship than business partners. Now, that's been time evolving, and there's lots of personal connection aside from the business connection that has said, hey, I like the crazy stuff that you like too, and we've got all this other stuff aside from just the work relationship. But that, takes time to get there. And there's plenty of people that we cross, we run into, associates and acquaintances that maybe consciously or subconsciously we don't feel that there's safety to go any further. So they're all forever in our periphery, but they're not someone that we're going to invite to the inner circle. Maybe deliberately, maybe not even in our consciousness.
Consciously, yeah.
Yeah, that's an awesome explanation. Actually, I had
excellent
struggled to think about a way to articulate that myself, but that makes a lot of sense. As we settle into any relationship, and whether that's the superficial level, or we move into a deeper level, or we move into intimate levels, or as we're talking about, you move into a tighter group, and we're using this definition of maybe you move from membership level, and you quickly identify, are these people really my peeps? Do, like you said before, is our intent and purpose aligned? Are our values somewhat on the same page? Are we here for the same reason? Then move into a household, which means, hey, we're coming closer together. We better start to get our safety shit sorted, and we better start to be open and honest with a lot of stuff so we can simmer that deepest level. And I think at the core of what we're talking about is this constitution thing, which I think is like a playing field. Like, it enables people to feel safe enough to explore this at a deeper level, because there are some rules around the engagement. And I like your example. I've been caught lots, and this is again a prehistory issue of, there's always a challenge with actually having a bond and feeling more than workmates with someone you work with, right? There's a risk there, right? Because you're putting emotional bits into the middle of the rest of it. Now, as I've got older, we have now got to a point where we understand when we're wearing what hat, and there isn't you can't do it perfectly, but you certainly have some better lines and understanding of, hey, when am I being explicit for the purpose of we need to be able to work more cohesively versus, hey, you're a human and I care about you as a human, so let's just put all that other shit aside because it doesn't matter. And that's one of those challenges, but an important one for enriching life, I think.
Absolutely.
You know what I've been noticing throughout this conversation is how much is going on in my interior.
Awesome.
And how little is showing on my face. like I've trained myself not to show, am I getting some jitters? This is making me uncomfortable. Do I have to pee? Do I want to go to bed? Yes, I do want to go to bed. I'm used to going to bed very early because I've been quite ill.
Yeah.
So, but I've been tuning in on myself as well as tuning in on you two, and hopefully I've felt the audience a little. But there was if I had to tell the story of all the stuff that went on inside me during this 45 minutes, close to an hour, I'd be here talking until midnight. How do you feel about that? Are you able to track your own stuff at the same time as you're tracking what's going on outside and think, I'm not expressing this at all, or I'm staying right here and my body's going a different direction?
Yeah, that's really interesting, Christine. We naturally mask our emotions. So we've got this turmoil monkey mind going on.
Or something going on in here.
And we're poker face, or we're all business out here, which is, yes, I'm sure that we all suffer that to varying degrees. I think it's important to recognise, and the first step is to be awareness and insight, and be open that this is a thing going on.
But the second step is to be able to express it.
Yeah. I agree with you.
I think what's really useful in this threesome is that even on a podcast where we've got an audience that we don't even know these people, right?
That's right. Oh, no. Hi, Mum.
Hi, Mum. We've made ourselves somehow feel comfortable enough to be able to bring up something like that. I've been on an internal roller coaster the whole time. I've looked fine. I've looked like nothing was going on. I'm just having a conversation. And I'm thinking, we got to get to that point, don't we? Where we will say, I haven't, what my face has been doing isn't what the rest of me's been doing. My face is lying. It's got lots of practice at this.
Yeah. I think that's desperately important, because I truly believe that most of the journey of a group starts with the individual. And as a white male, I've been preconditioned not to be in touch with any of those things. But doing that, I must admit, is some of the most enriching moments I've had of my life, by letting go of the facades and the bits over the top and listening to that emotional roller coaster going on, and inquiring why that is, and inquiring why that is with a group of people who I've got a safe enough environment that I can explore those bits without getting judgment, without getting, you did what?
You thought what?
Yeah.
So, weren't you here? Weren't you listening? Where were you?
Yeah. So actually, and I said it half jokingly, but the more I say it, the more I'm starting to believe it, is that the most important thing that can come from People Purpose Place may not be the building.
No, I hope that is not the most important thing.
It will actually be the advancement of group nature and the fulfillment of people's individual desires by being part of operating, functional, safe, trusting, nurturing, connected groups of people.
Yeah,
will be what is more important.
Far and away, that'll be the greatest delivery out of this process. And I guess it's something that I wanted to spit out, that with our experience and practice of over a decade of getting to this level of conversation, Christine, as an example, and Darren, it doesn't mean that every group has to take that long to get there. We're part-time amateurs who've been doing this as a side hustle for a very long period of time. But we have documented And we have drawn around us a group of experts with various skill sets who we have enough common sense to turn to when we need that particular skill set. So, yeah, that then makes, to me, says this is much more replicable, teachable, trainable process. And yes, the greatest gift out of it, the greatest benefit, is these fat conversations and feeling safe enough with a group of people.
Yeah.
That you can actually say what you're feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think Darren really encapsulated the whole intention of People Purpose Place just now. And I think, Rowan, you've sort of expanded that. But you know what? I'm ready for bed.
Yeah.
Can I carry this conversation on later? Because that's also something that I normally don't allow myself to say, I've had enough. I've been filled up with this beautiful conversation, and I'm good now.
Sufficient.
I'm going to bed. Yeah.
And you're absolutely
and the rest of the conversation that I need to take part in, it can happen next week or tomorrow or whenever.
Absolutely.
When the time is right.
When the time's right.
Awesome.
Namaste. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, both.
Appreciate the conversation.
Thank you, Darren.
Hung into 7:30. How about that?
That's awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely.
Exceeded the expectations far and away.
Exceeded my own.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Good night.
Talk soon.
Thank you, peeps. We'll see you again next Monday evening, 6:30 for People Purpose Place. Stay tuned.
Sounds good.
See you later.